All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're all having a fantastic LunarCon celebration. Of course, 3 years in a row. Not not a feat of the how do you say this? It's awesome that it's continuing. It's awesome that it's continuing. Also, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there was a alerts. Oh, there we go. We are starting to see people in chat now. Welcome everybody to LunarCon 2023, the third year. It's been active, super awesome program, run by super awesome people. And I am here, yours truly, Croatoan, live today for an hour to talk about the latest developments of Final Fantasy XIV lore that we've received as of Fanfest 2023. So I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope it's going to continue to be great or get better, however it goes. We are going to go ahead and talk about Tural. Now, here's the funny thing. I'm going to go ahead and start pretty early in the sense of what I want to say. But you're going to have to forgive me. Yo puedo hablar español también. And because I can speak Spanish, I can't help but pronounce Tural like that. And I've heard people say Tural. But I say Tural because it sounds better that way. And it's mainly because, I am trying to be better with my Spanish practice, and we are going to an area that is borrowing strong influences from Mesoamerican heritage. So because of that, I just get really into the whole cosa de español. So we're going to be talking. I'll probably say a lot of Spanish words, and then I'll explain what I'm trying to say. Yes, I want that accent. I got you. And thank you, Coffee Carby. Yes, this hat is a priceless relic from 2018 FanFest, and I've been carrying this and bringing it to all my fantastic Final Fantasy XIV themed shows. That includes LunarCon. I think I've worn it every LunarCon, so it's like traditional now. But yes, we are here today to talk about Tural, and we're going to talk about everything that we have received in game about this region. But before that, of course, we're going to put a little theme music on. I do like having some sort of background noise to help. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and talk about that. I'll go through each panel, explain the contents of each panel. We're going to talk about the different lore bits about this new region that we'll be exploring in 2024. And of course, we do try to leave a little extra time at the end for questions. If we do have any extra questions at the end of the panel, I don't mind jumping into the overtime chat, which is in the LunarCon Discord. So you can ask any questions you might have after the presentation. Now, if we finish up and we get to do answering questions, I might have to go take a break because I have been preparing this panel for a good while. So I do want to take a little bit of a break, but I don't mind. I don't mind stopping by the overtime chat and talking some things out. If you have any questions about this place, you want to learn more about this region, and so on and so forth. But yes, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And I'd like to thank everyone, of course, for stopping by. Thank you, LunarCon, for giving me this opportunity once again this year to present my favorite subject, and that is the subject of Final Fantasy XIV lore. So thank you very much. Let us start. All right, so a quick introduction. Let's go ahead and introduce myself. For those that may not know me, I am Croatoan, and I have the awesome opportunity, I should say, just really, really cool chance to have developed a platform called the SLM Collate. I started this in 2020 when the pandemic hit, obviously, with everything that was going on. I was stuck home. I didn't have really anything to do while I was stuck home. And I ended up designing a channel where I could talk about my lore excitements, things that I was excited about with video games, narrative design, world building, what have you. And it has now been officially 3 years since I started this venture as a Twitch streamer and content creator, focused on, of course, lore and narrative of video games, tabletop games, what have you. And of course, I gotta mention it. Final Fantasy XIV is getting its own tabletop next year. Let's go! It's gonna be so cool to work with that, and they're definitely gonna try to make some stuff for that. But yeah, primarily have focused all my work on documenting lore, talking about it, having conversations about the subject, showing you the cool stuff that is in our favorite video game. Now, I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV for 8 years now, right? It's been part of my life for I I don't even know. I can't think back to 2015. I can't really think back at all without thinking about how many times I've been invested in the Final Fantasy XIV franchise. So I've been here for a good while, and yeah, now we're leading on 8 to 9 years of playing Final Fantasy XIV. It is yeah, totally agree with the shirt. Yes, we got something. It's a very important thing. My contributions, I like to say, well, with this shirt, but lots of cool stuff has happened because of my experience as a Twitch streamer, as a content creator. One of the things I was able to do starting back in 2018, right, was write lore articles for a group of people that you may know as Etherflow Media. They were fantastic individuals, super creative talent that came together and created a magazine that published quarterly. And I was invited to contribute to that magazine. So I was able to publish 8 lore articles with them. I got to do an interview with Bon Ryota and Natsuko Ishikawa once. Like that was amazing, right? Like the opportunity to do that came through Etherflow. And then also with the articles, I was able to do 38 podcast episodes. We have 2 different podcasts I was worked on where I do, in fact, get questioned repeatedly about lore stuff. So it's just lore stuff. That's all I do. That's really all I do is lore stuff. And I've been able to create a nice amount of references to this world that we are all invested into. And then, of course, Spikes on Spikes, for those that may remember from the FanFest 2018 when they asked the audience about contributing to an apex predator fish. I was one of the ones selected, and I put spikes on the fish. You can catch that fish now. It's called the Vegetarian. It is at Hell's Lid. That lore for that fish, I helped contribute to. So I'm pretty proud about that. Not only do I cover lore in Final Fantasy XIV, I have helped make lore in Final Fantasy XIV. And you can actually, yeah, it's still there. I try to catch it, and I do a really bad job. But one day I will have a Vegetarian, and one day be in my wall, and I can tell everyone, oh, hey, I helped with that. And then, of course, the last but not least, hashtag #UncloudOsabard. If you have seen that at any time on your Twitter feeds, that is a contribution that I've helped develop with Synodic Scribe. The two of us, we were talking, we were making jokes about that, the map being strangely covered in one specific area, even though the Charlians, who are dedicated to knowledge, somehow haven't done anything to fix that. So we were making jokes about it, and then I said, I'm going to start trending hashtag #UncloudOsabard. And he's like, yes, let's do it. And last year, FanFest, we actually went super extensive in promoting that hashtag. And of course, as you can see from the photo there, I got a chance to take a photo with Naoki Yoshida. And with that photo opportunity, I brought my map and I brought my shirt, which I'm wearing right now. The #UncloudOsabard shirt. I brought that to Vegas and was able to take a picture. So the funniest story, of course, is he did find out what my shirt said. Amy translated it for him. And he looks at me and he says, someday. So, yeah, that's all I got for you, unfortunately. From Yoshida himself, is that Ilsabard will be unclouded someday. We're still working on it. You got to help us trend that hashtag so Square Enix can pay attention and see that and be like, you know what? They really want Ilsabard unclouded. Let's just do it randomly, you know? It would be great. I'm just saying. But that's me in a nutshell. And of course, if you do ever want to check anything out, just check out that title, the S1 Collate. Got all my stuff online and all the work I'm currently doing. But now let's talk about the main subject. The main subject is Tural. And so I want to say a really important statement to make here. Of course, we understand that the Eorzeans have referred to this place. They've called this region the New World, right? Now, as you know from what we've received from the panel at FanFest, was that they're calling it Tural. And I want to make sure that everyone knows here, it is very important that we start calling it Tural. New World is not a good word. Mainly because of its connotations. So now that we got a name, I want to talk about it, and then we're going to, every time you get a chance to mention the New World, try to be like, Tural, we're going to call it Tural. We are going to talk about namings too, because there's a little snip there that I was in my research that I noticed, and I wanted to bring that up as well. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Tural. As you can see from the picture here, This is a screenshot from the moon. You can actually see the entirety of the continent from the moon's surface if you travel there, and it's got some good lighting. It's one of my favorite pictures to take. I love going up to the moon and being like, hey, what can we understand from the visual of the world? And it just you give it I think it's about an hour rotation, more or less, and you can see the entire world's rotation. Super cool stuff. So highly recommend you take a chance to go up there and just check it out, and then imagine the graphic update. It's gonna look really cool. But here's the thing: all our knowledge, everything we've ever received, in reference to Tural. I'll start it with Popodo. I had no idea, but was able to find out pretty quickly. And I did some research, and a huge shout out to Anonymous because I pinged him for it. I asked him about it. He's kind of my go guy when it comes to 1.0 stuff. And I asked him, I was like, what references to Tural have we received from 1.0? Because I did a search. SoundSeed did a 1.0 archive, literally documented all the text available in 1.0 in a Google Doc. Absolutely incredible work. And I was digging through that, and I hard searched, and there was not a single reference to New World, Mamoja, or Mamook. Couldn't find anything. So when I asked Anonymous, he was like, the only thing that I was able to find was Popodo. So here we are. 1.0's only reference to Tural was the Popodo, and all it called it was the distant western continent. And I thought that was really interesting, because as far as I've been able to track in the history of Final Fantasy XIV, everything that we've received in terms of destination has had some basis in 1.0. We knew about Ishgard because of 1.0, Alamigo because of 1.0, Thavnair, right? All of those regions had been named, and we had some context in 1.0. But all we had about Tural in 1.0 was a Popodo, and it actually did some pretty big stuff, along with everything else that came with it. So let me go ahead and explain what I mean. Everything you see here is either a product or an import from Tural. A heavy portion of Eorzean comestibles, the things that they prepare, right, from Ishgard's into it. We got Limsa Lominsa, Gridanian dishes, Ul'dan dishes, right? All of these nations have influences from imports brought over from Tural. And everything you see here is native from there, or made from things native from there. And I thought that was really cool. So it's not just the Popodo that's important, but rather the entire culinary influence that has been part of Eorzean culture for decades now, right? Because the most important thing to remember is that we didn't really get a highlight of all of this stuff until the first lore book. The first lore book helped give a lot more information. We only at the time had the Great Google Library's book from Heavensward. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I mean, without Heavensward, right? We didn't have Over the Horizon. We didn't have the Over the Horizon Redux that explained about the Mamoja. We only had, at the time, the dungeon, Wanderer's Palace, things like that. But we had the food from day one. We had the ogre pumpkins. We had the ruby tomatoes, the reagent peppers, right? They recently actually added that the burrito lunch, but it's made from those ingredients, right? We got the alligator pears, which, by the way, thanks to this research, thanks to Final Fantasy XIV, I learned that alligator pears is an old word for avocados. I didn't know that prior to playing this game, and now I learned stuff from playing this game. So, by the way, that's one awesome thing I enjoy about Final Fantasy XIV, is that it teaches me stuff. I learn a lot about many things from this game, especially and a lot of its references. We also got the cacti, the nopales, right? We got the cone flowers in Dravania. And that last one right there, as you can see, right, that is an interesting little element that I want to kind of highlight just a little bit. It's called Agua de Sol. Más español. I actually, now here's the thing. I really do want to find out. This is because we have no reference to it yet. I want to know if there's a source for Spanish in Final Fantasy XIV, because we have Spanish words, but we don't have a Spanish speaking culture yet. And then we got Agua de Sol from Tural, and I'm like, bruh, would be interesting. I'm not saying anything yet, but would be interesting to find a very Spanish-based area. It would fit very well, and then I could pronounce all the words because I know those accents. Because I cannot pronounce the French. Ishgard messes me up every time. That besides the point. But the Agua de Sol is interesting because it was an item that was in 2.0 that gave us a neat highlight of things that were influenced from Tural. But it's not in the game anymore. They recently shaved a lot of quests from the Realm Reborn to kind of make it a little bit easier for everybody to clear. And one of the quests was the quest that introduced Agua de Sol. So it's not in the game anymore. But I would like to mention that even 1.0 stuff that's not in the game, we still tend to reference to. So it still kind of exists as kind of a window, if that makes sense. It's a window into the new region. But, yeah, Agua de Sol is no longer in the game. So it's like, wait, is it real? Is it not real? I don't know what do we do. Is it canon? That's the question we might all ask. But as for me, I'm still going to use it. But yeah, as you can see here, everything here, right? We got the ogre pumpkins. They made that soup. That soup there is actually got pumpkins in it, which is awesome. I kind of want to make. I blame a lot of the channels that focus on making food from the cookbook because it's making me. I really do want to start making some Final Fantasy food, but a lot of this stuff is really really cool because they've had it in Eorzean culinary history for several decades. And all of this is the result, of course, of the first voyage to the western shores, and that voyage was made by someone known as Kenton Ram the Blue, right? That was in the year 1497 of the 6th Astral Era. So Eorzeans have made contact with Tural in the past, but it was at least 70, if not more than 70 years ago, right? Kenton Ram discovers this continent, and they meet they meet the leader of the Mamook, the autarch, right? They receive gifts and permission to travel the land. They start mapping things, and they start, getting the root vegetables that they can find, the different things they've never seen before, and they bring it back, right? They bring it back to Limsa Lominsa. Excitement about this journey starts to spread through the city, and now everybody wants to go to Tural. They're like, oh my gosh, there's something over there that we didn't know about. Let's travel. And so a ton of people started traveling, and this is 1500. This is the opening of 1500 was the Age of Exploration from Limsa Lominsa. And so from that point onwards, 70 years down the line, they're getting imports from Tural in the form of all these vegetables, plants, alchemical items, things like that. Now, I didn't put it on there, but some of the other stuff that I thought was really interesting was recently in Endwalker we found out that Thavnair has a type of corn that they grow that is cultivated from the corn that was brought over from Tural. And I was like, that's really, really cool. Like, they've not only influenced Eorzea, but there's Thavnarian culture that's a big part of what was provided from the New World, right? From Tural. I'm going to keep saying, see, I'm learning too, right? I'm learning to change the name. But it's really, really neat to track those different, like, cultural influences that have been there. And it's not something, we're not going to Tural and it's a completely undiscovered place, right? It's influenced Eorzea a long, long time ago. And we're going to finally connect those dots and find where those sources are from. So pretty cool stuff, right? Another mention I did want to make before we move on from the food. I hope I'm not making everyone hungry because I do want to mention the food. We have the Mamook pear, right? The Mamook pear was added a little bit later on in the Realm Reborn. And that is, this is the funny part. That is, outside of the lore book, the only time that we have the name Mamook in reference to Tural. And so I did see some commentary if it was considered a retcon now that they're calling it Tural instead of Mamook. And I would like to say that I want to hold myself before I make a thought or a decision. I don't want to think that that's the case because here's the deal: we've learned new stuff in the past that have layered on top of the stuff we've learned in before we got the new information. So there's an absolute chance that they might change it or explain why the Mamoja might refer to Mamook, but then it's also called Tara. It's totally possible, right? So I don't want to say it's a retcon yet, but there is that case. The Mamook pear is the only place that we know it's called Mamook, and then of course the word pops up in the lore book. So we'll see. Do want to see if they do mention it because I am always proud of the dev team for taking the time to mention things, especially any changes that they've decided to make. So we're cool with that, right? Oh, let me move on to here. All right. So, of course, one of the primary discoveries of Kenten Ram and later explorers to the region was the nation of Mamoja. Very important thing to note is that the word doesn't refer to a singular group of people, but rather a collective, a federation of loosely but distantly related, like loosely related, distantly related tribes, but there's multiple groups that comprise the Mamoja. And I thought it was really interesting. This is a point I really want to highlight. I thought it was interesting that we didn't have any information regarding the differences in the tribes until the time that the Mamoja start arriving on Eorzean shores shortly after the results of the calamity. So when the calamity happened and everyone was, I mean, we're talking about the eve, like right after the calamity hit. People were trying to find a way to repair their lives. People were trying to find a way to prevent the complications that were rising up. When you start playing the game, that's 5 years after the calamity, right? But we're talking about right after the calamity happens, there's that time period of uncertainty. And it was during that time that the call was made for help. And the Mamoja, the nation of Mamoja, responded in kind and arrived in Eorzean shores to serve and ply their trade as mercenaries. So all of the information we get about the Mamoja, like their culture and what comprises why it's considered Mamoja is considered the name of a nation of multiple tribes, the differences in those tribes, all of that came from recent developments where the Mamoja arrive on the shores of Eorzea. So it's like we're really just getting to know them for the first time ever. Like recent getting to know them. This isn't a nation. We may have been in contact with a nation, or Eorzeans may have been in contact with a nation for 70 years, but the culture of the Mamoja wasn't really understood until more recently, because then now we have the references. Now we can see the different tribe members, things like that. And I think that's really interesting. But I would definitely want to see that play out and probably explained a lot more next year. So you can see here we have one of the tribe members that you may be most familiar with, this individual of the Mamoja nation, are tribe members of a group known as the Hubigo, right? They have combs on their head, right? That's how they usually are discerned by the large combs on their head and their brown coloring, the brown scales that they have. And they tend to comprise mainly of strong individuals that serve as infantry, serves as fighters, serves as warriors. You always tend to see them with combat implements of some sort. And they tend to serve as like the front lines of a lot of the fighting that goes on between anyone that hires the Mamoja mercenaries or any of the things that they are doing, right? You got some awesome close-ups if you want to see kind of like it's just we've known the Mamoja for a while, right? We've known them because they're in the game. You can see them anytime. But this is the first time we're actually going to their homeland, right? They are the primary nation of Tural. And we're going to be meeting a lot more cultures, a lot more tribes, a lot more people that influence that region specifically. But the most information we've ever received about Tural came from the Mamoja. These are some really good screenshots. I got a huge shout out to make at the end of this, by the way. So I definitely got to talk about these screenshots. They're so cool. We got some more of the Hubigo tribe member. Right now, this individual, I thought this is an interesting part of Final Fantasy XIV. This member of the Mamoja is part of the tribe known as the Dopro. And as far as I was able to discover, as far as I was able to do research, I believe they're the only Dopro tribe member that we've met in game so far. Because they're known as the Beast Tamers, they're known as the Handlers, and if you really, really look, you can tell that the scale coloring is different, but they don't look like the Buniwa either, because the Buniwa are also blue. But the Buniwa use the magic, right? It's the Dopro tribe that are the animal handlers, the beast tamers, things like that. So you know what, Square Enix, if you want to add Beast Tamer or Beast Master anytime soon, it's right there. It's right there. Anyway, so yeah, they do all the animal husbandry and things like that in their collective nation. So I thought that was really cool. That we know that, but there's only one of them in the game so far. Probably gonna meet a lot more. I do hope. And then of course, can't mention the Doppler tribe without mentioning their Wyver mounts. The Beast Tamer could keep the Blue Mage company. It's possible. It's totally possible. The Wyvers are ill-mannered scalekin. You can tell. I mean, they look so grumpy, right? Ill-mannered scalekin that everyone has tried their hands at taming. No one has been successful except the Mamoja. And the Mamoja use them both as beasts of burden as well as weapons of war. They are very, very the combat aptitude is insane. I mean, they are literally walking battering rams. And you do fight them in dungeons. You get a mount for it, by the way. I don't know if you know, there's a Wyver mount out there. I know. I need to get mine before Dawntrail comes out because I don't want to miss the opportunity to have a Wyver mount at Tural at Tural. That would be really cool. Now, this was what I was talking about. I mentioned it a little bit in brief. This is the Beniwa tribe, right? The magic users. They're known specifically for the huge reservoirs of ether from hunts, right? Actually, Neo, the Wyver mount comes from Fates. It's a gift you can buy with bicolor gemstones. So it's the shared fate program that they got going on. But yeah, these members of the Mamoja tribe, the Mamoja nation, are known for their deep reservoirs of magic and ether, and they are always seen casting spells of some sort. We see them with the standards, right? We have the silver scale standards that they were using here to empower their allies, right? And then, of course, one of the bosses of Wanderer's Palace was also a part of the Buniwa tribe. The most important thing here, I'm going to try to reduce the amount of time I talk about this because this is huge. This is a huge reference we do want to highlight. For those that may know, and for those that may not know, the Mamoja are known to have all these separate tribes, but these tribes do not intermarry. These tribes marry within their own people. Every once in a while, for very specific religious observances, these tribes will intermarry, right? So, for example, a Buniwa tribe member and a Hubigo tribe member, as you can see from this union, right? And these individuals, they have children, and these children are born with two heads. They're called blessed siblings, and from literally the get-go, from the very beginning of their the formative years, which is from being born, they are prepared and raised, and they said the word groomed, but they're brought into this world to become leaders, right? And so they start off, they're treated very, very well, and then when they reach maturity, they are sent off into the world with a war band. They're given a specific control. They take control of a specific amount of their people, and they go out and they just fight. And it is a matter of prowess, right? They want to show off their strength. They want to show off their potency, and the the practice of doing so is a way to basically prove themselves as worthy to inherit things such as the Autarch's throne. And the reason why I'm saying this is important is because the primary plot element of Dawntrail, as we know it, is that we're going to Tural to help assist in this contest for the next king, who is a two-headed Mamook. And so I thought it was really interesting. They brought up the contest during Fanfest, but we've known there's some sort of contest process since the first lore book, right? The Dungeon Wanderer's Palace, as we go through it, is actually an extension of that contest, right? The warband that we're facing is the Silver Scales. They're trying to prove their worth as that warband to eventually get to the point where they can be the strongest. And Malaljaja, as you see there, his ultimate plan would have been to become the Autarch. He would have been one of the individuals that we would have had to face in the presence of trying to whoever's assuming the next throne. So this contest that's going to be happening next year is about these warbands, and I'm imagining I don't have any information because we've only had one Fanfest so far. I'm imagining the contest that pits everyone against each other is because people start joining different warbands to lead different groups of two-headed Mamook up to the throne. So we're going to meet a lot more individuals like Malaljaja in the future. And I thought that was really pretty. I wanted to mention that the contest specifically has already been a thing in Mamook references, and now we're having an MSQ based around it. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, second largest part of information we've ever gotten in regards to Tural and Tural's development is, of course, the Wallaki tribe and the Blue Magic and Blue Mage questline. There's a lot of talk about Blue Magic, a lot of talk about it being a limited job, but if anything, if I could convince you to do Blue Mage 4, it's for the story, it's for the lore. Blue Magic, or the Blue Mage lore is really, really cool, because we learn about the Wallaki as the source of the Blue Magic, right? The tradition that we are borrowing is from them. Martin is teaching us, but he learned it from the Wallaki. And they believe that there is a significance in the color blue, hence Blue Magic. The reason behind that is that their home territory is situated next to a very strong source of ceruleum. The region that they come from is called Lapis Canyon. And the development of the quest line, of course, the plot line as you follow it, is that Martin is trying to find some money, trying to find some help, so he can then develop a cure for an epidemic that's developing among the Wallaki people. And they believe it's a result of unfamiliar interactions with pathogens from Eorzea. So they work together and they find out that they need dream flowers for it. For those that know their lore, in Ul'dah, dream flower is what's the word? It's contraband because it's used to create somnus, which is a bad drug on the market in Ul'dah. So Martin had to acquire dream flowers. He's trying to do it on secret. Obviously gets caught because he's not very great at it. And then when he explains why he needs it, we offer to help. Now the problem was we get help from the worst person ever, who was Martin's partner. And Martin's partner managed to convince the Wallaki elders to give off their land because he tricked them with a contract that they didn't know how to read. And I was like, that's messed up. TLDR, we win, thankfully, and we stop Wastrak from taking the Lapis Canyon from the Wallaki tribe members. And I guarantee you, if I'm a betting man, come next year, when we enter Dawntrail, when we go to Tural, we're going to be able to visit the Lapis Canyon. They might have a different name for it by then, like a local name or something to that effect. But I do hope, in a way, we'll be able to learn more about this, about the Wallaki culture, their understanding of how the world works in terms of the flow of the soul, because it does talk about that a lot in the quest line. Especially with the proximity to the cerulean deposits, as well as their cultural significance behind the color blue. This is really, really cool context that we get from the quest line that I really want to get into. But additionally, there's a special benefit to Blue Mage, and that is we learn about some of the monsters and enemies that we might be able to expect upon arrival. And that comes from the magic that we use, right? So these spells that you see here are all referencing animals, species, something to that effect, that is only accessible in Tural. We can't get these spells from fighting any monsters in Eorzea or anything like that. We have to do certain objectives, and then you get these totems that contain the ether of these monsters. But these monsters are local to Tural. And so we get a significant amount of information about the region from the spell texts. As you can see here, we got White Wind. That's actually a spell that originates in Tural. I did like that the off guard mentions types of giants in the New World, right? In Tural, and that's really important because I'm going to actually mention in a little bit why giants are important. You got Revenge Blast, the Moon Flute, right, which is referencing a type of void scent that had there was a type of there was a culture in Tural that worshipped the moon, and they were influenced by this void scent, but then they realized that the void scent was a problem, or the flute that the void scent held was a problem. So there's a whole legend there that I'd like to learn more about. We got some more now references to the Indigo Deep. For those that may not know, that's the ocean that divides Eorzea from Tural. I have a strong feeling we're going to visit it somehow, or it's going to connect to it somehow. And I'm not going to say this in the sense of like this is something I want, but it would be cool if we do end up visiting the Sahagan homeland as a result of going to Tural, because the Sahagan homeland is in the Indigo Deep. So there are a lot of references to the Indigo Deep as well as Tural in the various references that you get of this region. But we have a lot of mention of varieties of void scent exclusive to Tural, because the Matra Magic, the Moon Flute that we mentioned earlier. I want to say Doom, the spell Doom, we couldn't get from Eorzea. We had to get it from the ether, from a specific void scent in Tural. So I'm interested to see what that's all about. We got this one. Now this one wasn't from a totem, but this one is the attack that's used in the dungeon, and it had some really cool referencing to Tural. So I do highly encourage anyone that's interested in some specific information of Tural, check out Blue Mage. You can learn a really huge amount of information prior to Dawntrail's launch, and it's just a fun little casual thing to play. You don't have to, they actually have savage versions, but you only have to do that. I just think it's really cool to read. We got references to dragons that might be Scalekin. This one, Dragon Force, really reminds me of like Valigarmanda. Like they're probably going to explain more about that with this, and then things like that. So, and then Transfusion, the self-sacrificing spirits dead that roam, that are all really interesting stuff to look up, right? Oh yeah. So we also have, thanks to Endwalker, more references to Tural from individuals that we meet throughout the various quests, right? And I have to mention this. I have to take time to mention this for my panel because, for those who do not know, my mother is from Trinidad, right? Trinidad, which is an island in the Caribbean. And Jeromir, this character here, makes a comment about archipelagos off the coast of the New World, right? Essentially, he's talking about the Caribbean. And I'm like, hold up. Square Enix, if you actually reference the Caribbean in Final Fantasy XIV, you are referencing where my mom is from. That would be insane. I would be so excited to experience that with everybody. And so when I saw this quote, I saved it, and it's kind of like my marker. I'm like, all right, let's see what the Caribbean Final Fantasy XIV's version of the Caribbean is going to be, because I want to know if that's what they plan on doing. But then he does mention barbecue, and barbecue, if you actually do the research, you look it up, barbacoa is a Taino word, which are the natives, the indigenous individuals of the Caribbean islands. So I was like, yes. So we learned about that in Old Charlie. We learned about the myth, right? The myth of Yumcax, right? Yumcax is a agricultural deity in Tural. And the really cool thing about Yumcax is that even though in the story of the game they make the monster a hunt mark and they're like, is this legendary plant life from Elpis? Because this individual that you meet, he does comparative mythology, and he's asking you to go find references to some of the myths that he's studying. And the Yumcax myth is this deity of agriculture, but you just go back in the past and you find him, and you're like, oh, he's right here. And it makes me think a little bit. It's like, it's really interesting about how certain creations of Elpis ended up becoming the source references to legends and myths of the current times. And it's like, oh man, I really want to learn more about that. I hope to get more references to the deities, because Yumcax, if you haven't looked up that word before, or you haven't heard that word before, is a Mayan deity of agriculture. So they are referencing pretty closely to source material. And that's what he looks like. Very, very interesting deity, I think. But I mean, that's impactful, right? If you saw something like that and you wanted to learn from it, that would be, I would probably start worshiping a one-eyed tree, because yeah, he actually makes me a little unnerved sometimes, because like the when you go by the hunt mark, he's like shaking and stuff like that, and I always thought that was funny. But other than that, it's really interesting side element. They just drop these. That's the thing about Tural. The entire time Tural has been part of Final Fantasy XIV's referencing, it's always been on the sidelines. It's always been some sort of like tooltip, Monster Hunt reference, magic reference, what have you. But it's these tiny little references that I want to get more information on come next year. All right. Of course, we got the map reveal, right? In the Dawntrail presentation that took place in July, we got the map reveal. And I'm going to take this time right now to really point out to everyone in the audience, something's up, because there's a crack in the ocean. If you look really closely, the ocean itself is dividing, and I'm like, huh? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that's referring to. Yeah, something's up. Why is there a crack in the ocean? It's like that's I'm really concerned. Yeah, that's probably fine. Whew. Yeah, I saw that while I was preparing the presentation. I was like, I really need to tell everybody. But of course, we got this little dragon icon, which I would like to say is probably Valigarmonda, in reference to that legend, because they always cover the map with legendary icons based on the various stories of the regions, things like that. There's a crack. Pacific Rim. That would be. I mean, hey, play that theme anywhere, it works. Alrighty. And then we see Tuliolal, which is that city that they were referencing. We're going to talk about Tuliolal in a little bit. We got Tural, Yaktaral. I want to say Urcopacha is probably going to be in this area. And then Yaktel would be down, they said southeast? Somewhere around here? Because you travel to Yaktel from Tuliolal. So it would probably be somewhere around here. That's all we got. We just got this really cool looking map, which they haven't posted. I had to go on the YouTube video of Fanfest and screen cap it, because there is not an official file of this map yet. Square Enix, I have questions. I need an official file of this map so I can take all the little pictures and try to figure things out. But yeah, really cool stuff. I was excited to see this expansion. Now, let me go ahead. I want to take a quick dive back to one of our previous panels. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. So if you look at the continent from the surface of the moon, right? Tural is literally just this portion here. You can line it up actually really, really nicely. Tural is just this. There's still all of this, right? And all of that. Tural is just like 1/3 of the continent, if that. And I'm like, wow. I mean, we're probably going to be playing this game for a good while, everybody. I hope you're here for the long run because this thing's going to be around forever. But I think that's pretty cool that they are taking, there's a lot of design and detail that's going into regions that do feel tiny, but they're actually not that small in retrospect, right? They're leading us to the Grand Line. We're hunting down One Piece. I love that. I love that reference. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, crack in the ocean. Let's see if they tell us what that means, if at all. And then we got this gorgeous, gorgeous artwork of Tural. This is going to be our new hub city. So this is our acting Kugane, Crystarium, Ishgard of Dawntrail. And oh my gosh, I'm super excited. It looks gorgeous, right? They mentioned specifically that there's a focus on diversity. So we're going to be learning a lot about different types of people. It's not just going to be, because for example, there's just specific groups of people that tend to form different nations, right? We always knew, like, Limsa, Rogadin, and then Ishgard is Elizin. There's those specific groups. But they said more than anything else, Tural focuses on diversity. So we're probably going to meet a lot more people that we didn't know, a lot more groups of people. I've opened myself to the idea of learning of more Mamook individuals, because Mamook is a collective, it is a federation, so there could be more tribes out there that we haven't met yet. And then in addition to the Hears that we've already known, the Hears are on the New World. We learned about that in the lore book. So the different tribes of Huron, the Hrothgar tribes that live in Yakdale, right? We're going to meet a lot of people, and it's going to be pretty cool. But, this is pretty cool references we got. And then Tural at nighttime on the beach. It's going to be very, very, some very nice ocean experiences, I think. In this area, this is artwork they provided of Urkopacha. Now, I wanted to point out in reference, since we are exploring the different themes and aesthetics of Tural, Urkopacha seems to be referencing a real-life location. And if you look closely over here, you see these bands of colors in this hill region. There's a place, right? There's a place in Peru, which is literally the exact same thing. So they're borrowing strong references, right? Strong references to the source region. And this is I'm gonna say the name is Vinicunga, but you can also call it the Montaña de Siete Colores, the Montaña Arcoiris, right? Montaña de Colores. They have a bunch of different names for it. But it's an actual place you can go visit in Peru. I thought that was crazy. But yeah, strong. I mean, you want a general idea of where the stuff's coming from is a very good indicator. But I thought that was really cool to find out. And we learned that Urkopacha used to be the center of a giant's empire. And that's why I wanted to bring it back to the Blue Mage discussion. That's why I was excited when they mentioned giants during the presentation, because they've already mentioned giants in Blue Mage. So now we're learning that they used to be an empire, and their descendants live in this region, but all that's left of the empire is ruins. And we also know that the Pelu, right, the new tribe that we're going to be introduced to, they also live in Urkopacha. They ride alpacas. They travel with tea, they travel the land selling tea, coffee, and mezcal. And another fun fact, by the way, the word Pelu was never known to anybody playing Final Fantasy, because the Pelu the design originates from Final Fantasy X, but they weren't called that in Final Fantasy X. They didn't have a name in Final Fantasy X. The name Pelu comes from Final Fantasy Mobius as a reference to that individual mentioned that name, and that was the very first time they ever gave a name to that group. And now they're in Final Fantasy XIV, so I thought that was really cool. They tend to do that a lot. There's a lot of referencing. They're adding developmental referencing to some of the references they make to previous Final Fantasies. And then we got some more screenshots of the Urkelpacha region, right? I'm super excited. I'm excited mainly because they, of course, the aesthetic change. Everything's gonna look so much better with the graphic update. But I mean, they're nailing the aesthetic down, right? We got this mountainous region. It's giving me the vibes of the Andes, right? Like, I can understand the source culture here. And then of course I'm gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh at me, but a lot of these plants I'm very familiar with from this type of area, and they even said that they weren't able to do plants like that in the past. So I thought that was really cool that they're taking the time to develop actual localized vegetation and not, you know, whatever with the new update. The new update's giving them a chance to create some really really cool on point aesthetics for this area. And then we were talking about Yaktael earlier. This is the forest that you can access from Tuliolal via dirigible. You have to fly there. The forest is very, very dense. And they also said that's probably going to be it's the first forest that we get to go to in Final Fantasy XIV that's covered in trees. It's going to be so dense. We're going to see so much foliage. We're going to see so much trees. It's going to be so green. It's going to be amazing. And just another reference, I know I've seen people talk about it. Those birds you see there, they're known as quetzals. And they're a bird that is in the region that this is inspired by. The quetzals live there. So, oh my gosh, Husky by the Geek. Oh man, I'm about to fanboy so hard. Yo, I love your music. I don't know if you know, but I commissioned you a couple times. I actually have some songs you made for me. So thank you, by the way. I get to thank you in person. Thank you for those because they are awesome. Anyways, off topic. Yes, dude. Let's go. Appreciate you. But yeah, there's another shot of Yaktael. We learn more about this forested region. We learned that it's home to Mamoja settlements, and it's also home to Hrothgar settlements. Don't quote me. Don't quote me. But this would be the perfect time to introduce Hrothgar female options for character creation. Because if you're going to have a Hrothgar settlement in Tural, you see what I mean? I'm just saying. Tural, right? It's good stuff. I'm stoked for the opportunity. And last, of course, we got this awesome dungeon. I specifically had to screen cap and, of course, make reference to this little guy. He's just a little guy. He really is just a little guy. And this is one of the two dungeons that they teased at the panel. I'm assuming this is also part of Yaktael, but no references, nothing. They haven't told us anything yet because they can't tell us anything yet. But it's going to be one of the really cool places we get to visit next year. So you saving it for January. Oh, I definitely think so. Definitely, it's gonna be they didn't say a thing about it, so I'm assuming it's for a later announcement. And there it is, with the final slide being a picture of Valley Garmonda, learning that it has a strong legendary presence in Tural and is also associated with, once again, the contest of wits that we are going to be participating in come next year for the throne of the Autarch. And there you have it. Thank you, everybody, so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this rundown of all the stuff that we've had in Final Fantasy XIV referring to Tural prior to the Fanfest notes that we got in July. I hope it's excited you a little bit. I hope it's opened your excitement for what's to come. And then, of course, encourage you to do some discovery of your own. Right? It's a theme of discovery that is the primary idea for next year. Do some exploring of your own. Go talk to some NPCs. Go check out some of those tooltips. You will be surprised the amount of information that exists in Final Fantasy XIV. It is one of my favorite subjects. Because of that, I constantly talk about it on Twitch because of that. And it's been one of my greatest joys so far. So, of course, I'm always here. And I'm always proud to talk about it with you all and given the opportunity to talk about it. So thank you so much. We're going to do a quick shout-out. Quick shout-outs. Of course, shout-out to Final Fantasy XIV Fun Facts on Twitter. You can also find them at Final Fantasy XIV XD, right? They post those. They're basically consistent updates that they post of the various information. I sourced a lot of the stuff that I talked about today from that Twitter profile. And if you want some nice lore to wake up to in the morning or when you're scrolling down your timeline, go ahead and give them a follow. You can learn some really cool stuff. We got the XIV API, right, which is a device that hard searches all the text in the game. So I was able to type in, the word New World. I was able to type in the word Mamook and find out all the references. So like I found out there's 31 references to Mamook, 35 references to the New World, 2 references to Mamook. That's why I'm saying I don't think they're going to keep that name because I don't think no one remembers that name. We got the Final Fantasy XIV Hunt.com website, Final Fantasy XIV Collect, Gamer Escape, Merc's Menagerie, and the Garland Data Final Fantasy XIV database. All of these awesome programs and awesome tools designed out there for loremongers like myself, as well as anyone out there that's really interested in Final Fantasy XIV and its information. Check out these sites. I highly recommend them. And any personal investigations of the lore or anything you want to learn about, especially if you're working with the lore yourself, whether it be writing or just exploring it, great websites to check out. And my final shout out, of course, is to one of my very, very close friends, known as Waterless Fish or Fishy, right? She helped me design this panel because I was freaking out about aesthetics and I didn't know if it looked good. And I asked for her help, and she helped me design this while I was working on researching. So she's the source of those screenshots that you saw and this overall design and the overall presentation. I really, really wanted to take the time to express my appreciation for all that work that she did to help me express this cool stuff to you. So yeah, the general design format, like we worked together on it. We were putting stuff together, and she made most of these aesthetic developments. So huge shout out. You would be useful to look into Toltec culture for some possible inspirations for the nomenclature, art, and architecture that we've seen in the trailer and live later. Absolutely, Toltecs, the Mayans, the Aztecs, right? The culture of the Yucatan Peninsula. I mean, there's so many different ways you can get into this. They so far are doing very, very good in terms of references, and they have committed, and they've said on live panels, they said that they are committed to preparing a more sensitive approach to the material that they're using. They're not just going to straight out reference things anymore. There's going to be a lot of research being done, and especially for Dawntrail. So I'm really, really proud of them for taking that huge step, to research the aesthetics that they're borrowing and really, really note that this is a reference, this is an influence, and we're going to respect the influence and the source material. So that's super cool that it took the time to say that. But yeah, it looks like I have in fact spent the entire time that I have been slotted talking about Tural, which is awesome because that was the plan. I was a little worried that I wasn't going to talk enough. I actually do talk a lot, by the way, and an hour seemed really, really small for me, but it looks like we finished just in time, which is super cool. But because we finished just in time, like I said, I'm going to have to jump into the overtime chat. If you have any questions for me at all about lore, it does not have to be about Tural. If you want to know anything at all right now, I'm going to jump into overtime chat for a few minutes. Give me about 10, 15 minutes. I'll just vibe there for a little bit. And ask your question, ask away, and I'll answer what I can and take notes for stuff I don't know and see if I can find some stuff for you. But other than that, once again, thank you so much to the LoomCon staff for giving me this time, for allowing me to stream on the channel and talk about my favorite subject of all, which is, of course, Final Fantasy XIV lore. And enjoy the rest of the show, everybody. Go check out the other panels, check out the events, follow everybody, give them that awesome... Just let them know they're doing awesome work because they are doing incredible work. And it is a very hard thing to do. But enjoy it. Enjoy this weekend, and I hope to see you around for Growing Light next week. Literally next Tuesday. This upcoming Tuesday is the next patch, and we're going to probably get some more information about Tural, more information about the invitation, and then, of course, Fanfest later down the line in London, where we'll be getting more information from those keynotes. So we'll see you around then. And then, of course, you can find me on my channels, talking about all of this with you. So, and thank you so much for the kind words, for sticking around and enjoying it. And I will end the stream now. It'll probably move on to the next person, next panelist, and yeah, I'll be in the chat and Discord. But yeah, thank you for your time, and I hope you learned something.